This is a recording for Mining Memories on Sunday the 3rd of November. My name's Robert Portman and I'm going to be interviewing Pam Finch. So just to start off, Pam, can you tell me where and when you were born?
I was born in Shirebrook, near Mansfield. Mind you, everybody local knows that, really. Shirebrook village.
Okay, and you grew up in a mining community. Which friends or family were involved in the mining industry?
My grandparents, not my dad. My dad came back from the war disabled. So the smaller part of my life I spent with my grandparents, who lived near the pit. My granddad was a deputy at Shirebrook Pit.
Okay, so you've got a grandfather who was a deputy at Shirebrook Pit. The deputy's role in a coal mine, do you know much about it at all, what he did?
Well, I know it was in charge of a section of men. What I remember, I used to go and meet him from there. What I do remember is there was a field at the side of the pit where the pit ponies used to be. And I had some lovely, happy memories of the pit ponies. They were lovely things. And the story that Grandad told me was about men used to take oranges in the pockets, and the pit ponies used to suck on the pockets to get the juice out of the oranges.
Right. And did your grandfather say much about his work, whether he enjoyed it or not? Any particular good or bad experiences?
Well, put it like this, he must have had, but I never heard him grumble. And you're talking in the war and just after the war. And I suppose the men, they just got on with it, because mining was as important as going to war as a soldier, you see. But and they all had their allotments and never went without vegetables and everything. But yeah.
Okay. Did he talk much about his normal working day to you at all?
No, not to me. I was mostly with my nan, but home cooked food. It was good. While I was at nan's, when I used to go home, it was bread and sugar, or if they got sugar, or bread and dripping and stuff like that, which I loved. I loved it all. That's how it just was like that.
And the veg they were cooking with, your grandparents?
Every time. Yes. There was vegetables that lasted all the way through the year, from peas to Brussels at Christmas, to cabbage, to turnips, to leeks, carrots, everything, absolutely everything, all the way through the year.
So they planned the food season?
Oh yeah, and they all did, not just Grandad. I remember him telling me that, because I used to love peas, garden peas, if I could go and get some peas out of the garden. He said, yeah, of course you can. But I took too many. I stripped the peas. Of course, I was in trouble for that. Silly little thing, but yeah.
And can you remember your grandfather talking to you anything about whether he was a member of the union or not?
No, I can't. I remember my mum telling me that with him being a deputy at the pit, in the it'd be 1926, would it be, when nobody had got any work. But apparently Grandad went to work, and we always went to church, all of us, and my nan had bought my mum and her sisters new coats and went out to church in these new coats. Of course, people didn't like this because there were no money. And I remember Mum saying Grandad did tell Nan off that don't ever do that again. So there was a divide, in those years, really. But with the deputies and, the pit manager at Shirebrook used to live next door to my Grandad, and they were friends, big friends and everything, so...
So did you find that your grandfather got on with other managerial grade employees than the other staff?
He was a clever chap, very clever chap, Grandad. Yeah. Okay,
as a community or family member, growing up in a mining community, what did a normal day look like to you when you're growing up, sort of as a young adult or as a child?
Well, we had fun. We made our own games up. I remember washing going on the line and always being covered in soot and all the women complaining. Even though my dad didn't work at the pit, he was disabled, you see, in his arm. He did work at Pleasley Mills, and we were never cold. There was always coal in the coal house, because all the men in the street used to work at the pit, and they used to sell coal to my dad. But the best of it was, we used to have to, when they had the coal tipped outside of the coal houses, the men, we as children, well, me, my brother and sister, had to go and get the coal into our coal house that Mum had bought. Of course, Dad couldn't do it, of course, but and there was great lumps, and we'd get the hammer, which we thought were brilliant. We used to get the coal into the barrow, wheel it up to our coal house. Yeah, just great. We always had fun. We didn't have televisions or anything like that. Bonfire night came up, and at each street, which were full of miners, all the streets were full of miners, each street had their own bonfire, and the kids, we used to steal some of their wood from Cavendish Street and so on, vice versa, But what else was there? Oh, all sorts of things we used to make our games up. But they were strict. The miners were strict. I think majority of them, as I've said before earlier, had allotments. Yeah, poor Dad. He never missed a day off work when he started work. Felt sorry for him in a way, as I've got older and realised what he'd gone through. But they all looked after him. All the miners looked after my dad. When the fun fair came to Shirebrook, it was on the market. I remember one instance, all the dads were getting coconuts off the coconut shies for the children, because my dad couldn't. So he asked the neighbours, and about half a dozen chaps came, men came to get us all those kids a coconut. They were all good, very good.
Yeah.
They all worked together and helped one another, the miners. Can say that.
So you talk about that community aspect to a mining community, and you were talking earlier about the fact your family went to church always on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Were there any community activities you were, as a family, were involved in at all?
Oh yeah, there was always the choir. I used to sing in the choir, and we had anniversaries, and we had Sunday school, we had bazaars, where I used to look after Lucky Dip. I used to love that job. But my nan, she used to present it. They used to present her with a bouquet of flowers for opening the bazaar and things like that. Yeah, happy times. for me, they were happy times. I mean, we never went really without anything. Not that we knew we had. You know, we'd always got clothes. But I think it was Nan and Grandad that looked after us more than my parents, kind of way.
And can you remember any community events or, say, things people did to socialise together in particular?
Oh, yeah, there used to be...
So you mentioned bonfire night, for example.
Bonfire night, oh, yeah. What else? There was loads of things, Pam. Come on, think. There was... I know they had a cycle ride where everybody joined in, and it was all the kids included went on the marketplace. The police were there checking your bikes to see if the brakes and lights and everything worked, and then you had a paper telling you a route where to go, and there was somebody stood at certain points on the route. And as you got up to the halt sign, you know, you got to put your arm out to slow down properly and look both ways and start off. And there were competitions like that where all the children that I knew joined. Yeah, and the dance, of course, but that was when I got a bit older. That's where I met my husband, in the dance halls.
So did you go there regularly, or was that...
Oh, yes, every Monday and every Saturday. No, Tuesday and Saturday, that's right. There was 2 dance halls in Shirebrook, 2 cinemas, and the dance halls were open, both of them on a Saturday, and the one opened on a Tuesday and the other on a Thursday. Central and the Elite, they were called. And Cresswell boys used to come down on the motorbikes. And of course, that's where, as I say, I met Ted, my husband. 1958. Yeah, very young. I got married at 19. And he took me straight to the farm. Little did I realise what hard work there was in front of me all the years. But I've loved it. Same as I've always loved life, really.
Did you have one of the 2 dance halls you preferred to go to?
Oh, the Central. Yeah.
Was there a reason for that?
No, not really. It just seemed to have the edge on the other one, the Elite. And then at Christmas time, and I'm not talking about just myself, we used to dance in the Central and Elite till 12 o'clock. And then at Warsop, they used to have a dance from 12 o'clock till 2 o'clock, something like that. And then we all used to walk it from Shirebrook to Warsop to the dancers, and then walk it back home again. And there was no fuss, no bother with the boys and girls, if you know what I mean. The lads would go and hide and come out and try and make the girls jump and one thing and another, but that was our fun. That's all we knew. We didn't know anything else. Yeah, great times.
And talk about you and your family when you're growing up. Did you, when you had time off, did you go on holidays anywhere or do any activities together?
We went to Blackpool, and the reason, as I distinctly remember Blackpool, is we didn't go on holiday other than that. Day trips. The men that went to clubs used to go in the clubs and get holidays for a day to Cleethorpes sort of, and on the train, and they used to get us tickets, you see, because Dad didn't go out. And But to get back to Blackpool, I always remember my mum was so upset, and she turned around and she said to my dad, "There's been a pit disaster at Cresswell." That was September the 26th, 1950. I remember that distinctly, and it was on all the billboards, you know, disaster at Cresswell Pit. But Ted's father was a miner, and he was at the pit at the time of the disaster. And I remember going down one day, and he sat talking to me about it. Oh, and he got himself really upset. But I suppose with me being the daughter-in-law, and there were nobody else there, his own daughter, or Ted, his son, or wife, but he didn't talk to them the same, and I suppose he could just get it off his chest with me. But, he really opened up about it.
So, with the 1950 Cresswell Pit disaster, can you remember having any sort of impact on the community as a whole? I know we've talked about relatives of yours.
Not my community, not Shirebrook, to my knowledge. But everybody in Cresswell village, according to Ted, my husband, it affected everybody. Even though my husband's a farmer, obviously it brought everybody into the village. Sadness, aunts, uncles, fathers, granddads, affected everybody. Yeah. And of course the local history group, which I'm a member of, we've got an exhibition on the pit disaster, which we put up every year, you know, somewhere along the line, or the church in church or whatever.
So, just before we move on to other significant events, how did living in a mining community affect your day-to-day life?
I don't think it did. Not me in particular. I went to school. The men went to work on shifts. Before I went to school, I used to take newspapers out. I didn't used to like the dark nights, but the miners liked the newspapers, especially the News of the World and the People. My granddad always used to have the News of the World and People. And they did shifts. Some worked at night, etc.
And have you any personal recollections of anything you used to do, say, with other children in the area? You talked about stealing wood from bonfires and you cycling and things like that. Any games you used to play or anything
Any
like
games?
that?
Well, Tincanalurky, we used to call it, where we used to have a piece of stone and a plank of wood and a can on the end, and we'd just knock it like cricket, you know, knock it up, and then cricket, football, leapfrog, hopscotch, skipping ropes. We used to get a piece of old washing line that somebody had thrown away, and it used to be ever so long, and there'd be two of us turning, and everybody would queue up and turn the rope. But the snow, what about 1947, the snow? It was unbelievable. Icicles, 4 foot long icicles, you know. And we used to start with a little snowball and roll it all the way down the street, all the way down until it was about this big. Then we'd do another one. And it was so icy at night time, we'd make a slide and it'd go from nearly halfway down the street on the road. And we had to go on the road, we weren't allowed on the footpaths. Mostly under the gas lamps, because there were gas lamps, you know. Of course, the boys used to swing on arms and what they didn't used to do. But the slides, and we'd get it that icy, the slide, it was brilliant, you know, really lovely. I used to hate my shoes that had got spun rubber soles on, you know, we used to like the leather ones, because you could go further. Oh, wellies. Wellies, we used to have wellies.
And when we look at the end, effectively, of the mining industry in the area, so we'll start looking at the 1980s strikes. Can you remember anything about them at all?
Yes, I do, particularly the one down Cresswell. Of course, being married to a farmer, I didn't, and Ted's father had retired out this time. So I didn't have a lot to do with it, but this particular day I met up with a friend down Cresswell, and they said, come on, let's go and have a look at the mine, the men and all the policemen, because the police used to come down here, you know, in the break. And we went to near the welfare at Cresswell there and stood on the footpath, and there were one or two of Ted's friends that were there, and they slammed into me because I was stood there. What you doing here? This has nothing to do with you. Get up back to the farm. So I just turned round and went. I said to my friend, I'm going. It was frightening. It was frightening. And as I say, I didn't have a lot to do with it. But you got that you were frightened to come down into the village to shop, and it was that bad. It really was bad.
So while the strikes were on, you felt it really affected you and Ted, and
how
you lived in the area?
It frightened me. As I say, it frightened me, but I mean, whether I would have felt different if Ted had been working at the pit or not, I don't know. You see, Cresswell Pit worked, and there the trouble. I mean, there was brothers split up and families. In fact, I think there's still some today that don't talk. It was strong feelings.
Are there any other national or local events that you can remember, or that you can you experienced while you were living in what was a working mining community? In
the mining villages? Well, not really. Not really. We used to go to church Sunday. We used to play at night time. As I got older, to the dances, the fair. We used to love the fair coming. And as I say, when I was a child, I remember Santa Claus being right in the middle of Shirebrook Market, and we'd got a threepenny bit. We'd been given a threepenny bit by my nanny, that we used to call her nanny. And there was a queue right the way past the drum, right the way down the road. Oh, I were having fits. I thought I wouldn't get a present, you know, but of course there was. But your imagination and everything. And Christmas, I love Christmas, always have done. And when I'm telling my grandchildren now about the little Christmas tree we had, and we had tinsel, we used to cut tinsel into strips and plait it for streamers and make our own trimmings and things like that. There were no posh thing like balloons and one thing and another. I'm talking it just after the war. Well, in the war I'd be too young, but just after the war, you know. I mean, there just wasn't the things about. Not that we missed them, because we didn't know about them.
And with the end of the mining industry, how did you feel when it effectively ended in the area?
Very, very sad, because it wasn't just the miners that were affected. It was the shops and side other industries, you know, that affected absolutely everybody. In fact, Cresswell's brilliant little place. They're really, the council today, they're really building the village back up, or trying to. I mean, there's always the ones that pull things down and everything. And of course, the jewel in our crown is the crags.
And post-mining, are there any things that stick out, or any memories you have of how communities changed in particular?
Yes, because a lot of the people are from the cities, Nottingham, Sheffield, and they just don't seem as if they're interested in the village like they used to be. I mean, we used to have carnivals every year, and everybody, all the children used to dress up and have competitions, and there was always something going off. Look at the band. The band, Cresswell Brass Band, were famous. Cresswell Colliery Brass Band were famous. They made records, you know, but it's got to try and build things up again with even the band, you know, and that applies to every group. I mean, it's same as the bank. There's no bank in the village. I know there's machines that you can go to, but there's no bank. There's lots of things happened. It's unbelievable, you know. The shops, there's hardly any shops, but then again, we have got a few shops, more than Langworth.
And you think that's due to the fact that people now have moved here from Nottingham, Sheffield, or they have to go and work there? They have to go away from Cresswell to
well,
work?
they don't seem to be interested in the village, not like the old Cresswellians were.
Right then, Pam, that would be brilliant, thank you.
Very
Thanks for your time.
welcome.
So we'll end recording here.